Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope that you're having a great start to your week. It's almost St. Patrick's Day, so I'm going to kind of show you a St. Patrick's Day twist on our free project, which is on the Sulky website right now. So I'm going to kind of give you the inspiration of that project and then put a St. Patrick's Day twist on it. And then you will see how you can alter it, customize it, modify it, embellish it to make your creation out of it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to focus on the technique of reverse applique. So if you've never done reverse applique, or you would like some tips on any kind of applique, today is the day. So put your questions, comments, all of that good stuff in the live chat or in the comments below, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and I will address those as we go on today. So if St. Patrick's Day is coming up a little too quickly for you, there is still time to create something to wear or to place out in your home. It's in a couple of days, but machine embroidery is really our friend when it comes to last minute gifts, last minute wearables, last minute anything, right? So if you can't find anything green in your closet, may I suggest grabbing up our Feeling Lucky machine embroidery design collection and quickly stitching one of those designs onto a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. You may remember a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, I stitched out the Lucky design on the back of a zippered sweatshirt. So I'm all set for St. Patrick's Day. I also made a Lucky Lady t-shirt for my daughters. So they're all set as well. Probably need to get working on the Mischief Maker design. I did promise this one to my son to wear on St. Patrick's Day. So I also have some last minute St. Patrick's Day stitching to do. You can grab this machine embroidery collection as just a digital collection and get started stitching it out today, just in time to wear in a couple of days and celebrate St. Patrick's Day. You can also find it with a thread assortment. So we also have this as a machine embroidery thread palette, which means you get all 10 colors of thread featured in the entire design collection, as well as the entire design collection. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 when you grab up the thread along with the designs. All right. Just wanted to make sure, is everyone ready for St. Patrick's Day? Because along with wearables, I do have a cute little shelf pillow I'm going to showcase some little leprechauns and some 4-leaf clovers on. But first, let me show you where we're going to start, and then I will take my twist on this project. So our free project this month is the Mom Shelf Pillow. So we're ahead of the game here for Mother's Day, but this is a great little project that you can customize with anyone's name, any lettering, any sort of designs you want to put on that felt section on the top of this pillow. So if you've never heard of a shelf pillow before, it's really just a pillow you can display on a shelf. That's how big it is. This one measures about 7.5 by 8 inches. So it's relatively small, but you could also obviously add this to your couch cushions. I think it also makes a great little pin cushion. You can use the felt area for storing your pins next to your sewing machine. You can even make it a little bit smaller or make it larger if you want to, cluster it with some more pillows, maybe on your couch or rocking chair or something like that. So this is our free pattern. Head on over to sulky.com and you will find it. It's a digital pattern at $0. So you do need to add it to your cart, go through the checkout process, and then it will be added to your sulky.com account. So you can retrieve it at any time. If you happen to lose it or you can't remember where you saved it on your computer, which happens to me all of the time, you can locate it again at your Sulky account. So that's really the benefit of having these great digital patterns, digital designs, all kinds of that stuff stored at your sulky.com account. So this pattern comes with the templates to create those mom letters. Now, if you want to create someone else's name, or you want to say something else like lucky or fun or happy or whatever phrase you want to create, you can choose a block style font on your word processing program and type it out. And it's suggested in the pattern to size it at about 150 font type. So it all depends, though. If you have a longer name or word that you want to fit along that section of felt, then you're going to need to go a little bit smaller. So just kind of do some tests, print it out, see how it fits along that piece of felt. That felt, after we do the reverse applique, gets trimmed to 4 by 8.5. So it's only 4 inches wide to fit your letters onto. So like I said, if you want to spell a person's name and it's longer than 3 letters, or a different phrase, or even just do some hearts, or as I'm going to do, some 4-leaf clovers, you can either size it within that 4 inches or simply resize the whole pillow. Just enlarge all the pieces that you need to create your pillow, because we're not using a pillow form here. We're going to stuff this with fiberfill, so it can be any size we want. All right, you can also see there's a little bit of patchwork on this pillow, so it's a great scrap buster project. All of those little scraps are 2.5 inches square, so this is a great time to dive into your scrap bin, mix and match, have fun with it. And then there's also a little piece of ribbon, a 9-inch length ribbon, and you will get all the instructions and all the dimensions, everything you need to cut and sew with the free pattern that you can download, save to your computer, etc. So don't worry about writing down all these dimensions, but any ribbon will do. You can even do a decorative stitch along that seam line. You can insert a piece of piping in that seam line. You could even insert some pom-pom trim, one of my favorites. There's the little micro pom-pom trim that's really cute. You could insert that into that seam. So there's tons of ways to personalize it. This is the ribbon that I'm going to use. It's like a lace ribbon, and I've had this in my stash for a long time. I don't have enough of it to really do much with it at all. So this is the perfect opportunity to use it for this little shelf pillow. All right. Oh, here's another picture of it so you can see. Now, there are a few different thread weights we're going to use to construct the pillow. And again, it's really going to depend on your choice and your finished look. So for the patchwork piecing, we recommend the Sulky 50 weight cotton. We have 2 different sizes of the 50 weight cotton thread. You can grab it up in a snap spool, which are these smaller spools that have those snap ends, right? So you can store your thread in those ends. If you want a little bit more, or a lot more, you can grab up the 600 yard king spool, and that's our cotton and steel thread by Sulky. All right. So 2 different options there, depending on how much thread you want to purchase for your particular project. But this 50 weight cotton thread is really great for piecing because it's so lightweight, it almost becomes one with the fabrics that you're sewing together. When you either press your seams to one side or press them open. I know there are different schools of thought on that, so it's really your personal preference. You will not get that telltale thread bump that you can feel on the right side of your patchwork. It just kind of blends in because it's so nice and lightweight. So that's what we're going to use for the piecing. And then for the reverse applique, I like to use the 30 weight cotton. And today I'm going to actually demo the 30 weight cotton blendables because, well, I love the blendables and it allows me to get a lot of different colors on the applique stitching without having to swap out my thread. The blendables, well, I have it in the machine right now, but they are randomly dyed every 2.5 to 5 inches. I have been talking about this thread a lot this month because it's National Quilting Month, and I really, really love this thread for quilting. I use it almost exclusively, the blendables, unless I really want the fabric to be the star of the show rather than the thread work. Or if I have a lot of machine embroidery or other embellishment in the quilt, then I will go with either a 50 weight cotton or a 30 weight solid so that it blends in, it blends in a little bit more with the fabric. All right, so those are the 2 threads I'm going to be using today when I show you my St. Patrick's Day version of the little shelf pillow. You could also do your reverse applique stitching using 12 weight cotton. The 12 weight comes in a king spool or a snap spool. If it's in the snap spool, we call it our petites, and these are little 50-yard spools of the 12 weight cotton. And you could do your reverse applique stitching by hand. Just do some running stitches along the felt edge after you apply your fabric behind it, and you'd have really nice prominent stitching and a little bit of handwork look to your finished project. All right, so on to the reverse applique. Now, obviously, traditional applique, here are our supplies. Gathering our supplies for the project. Like I said, you'll need some 2.5-inch squares for that patchwork part, some ribbon, different thread weights. Obviously, you need some machine needles. And what's great is you can grab up a pack of Oregon assorted quilting needles or assorted universals, and those will come with the smaller size needle that you need for the 50 weight thread and the larger needle that you need for the 30 weight thread. So you'll have all the needle sizes that you need, and you can just swap your thread weights and swap your needles as necessary. Then you need some felt, which we are going to use the brand new Sulky Felty, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, you need some other fabrics. We need fabric to go behind our reverse applique areas, and then we also need a square or rectangle rather of backing fabric for the back of our pillow. All right, there are also some little cute buttons that are featured on the front of the pillow. I didn't get to that part today, so I'm going to be adding my buttons probably after I sew this all up, but that's the great thing about buttons. We can add, take away, embellish to our heart's content. If we've put too many on there, we can just snip them off. So, it's our chance to grab that button bin that probably all of us have. I have a button jar. And kind of go in there and find some little button embellishments. Maybe they're going to be the center of our 4-leaf clovers, or you could put a button in the center of the O when you're spelling out mom, and that would be really cute. Or just cluster some floral buttons like we have on our featured pillow. All right, so reverse applique. What is reverse applique? Well, traditional applique is when we have our piece of fabric, our background fabric, and we cut out a cute little motif, a heart, a 4-leaf clover, a little horseshoe, whatever, and we fuse it to the right side of our fabric, and then we sew around it to apply it to the fabric. Now, for traditional applique, we recommend our Perfect Applique Fusible Web. It is the best quality fusible web out there. It's very lightweight. After you fuse it, you can't even tell that you have fused anything. It doesn't have that crusty, papery feel like some fusible webs do. The hand of your fabric is almost exactly the same as before you applied it. So I think you will all really like playing with it, using it. If you haven't already, give it a try. We have it in 1-yard packs, 3-yard packs, and on the bolt. So depending on how much applique you like to do, grab that up and give it a try. All right, so that's basically traditional applique, and you can either turn under your edges or you can satin stitch around your motif to seal those edges, or you can do raw edge applique, which means you simply stitch inside of your applique fabric raw edge and just with a straight stitch, and then your outer edge, it can fray a little bit and it gives it sort of a shabby chic look, and so that would be raw edge applique. Now for reverse applique, we're actually going to cut our base fabric, and then we're going to place our applique fabric behind it so that it shows through on the right side. So it's kind of like a window effect. Then you can sew along your background fabric edge to further secure it to your applique. So that's what reverse applique is. And what I like about the Felty and using it for reverse applique is it is engineered or manufactured in such a way where it's a needle felt. So it's not like craft felt where it's super stiff. This felt is really great for sewing projects, fantastic for machine embroidery. It accepts all of that great stitching. There's no buckling, puckering with really dense embroidery. It's great for freestanding patches, all kinds of things. It comes in lots of colors. This is just a small sampling of the colors that we have. And we have 3 assortments. Let me show those to you here. We have 3 assortments available at sulky.com, a rainbow assortment, a neutrals assortment, and then a heathered assortment. So that's your heathered grays and greens and blues. And these are perfect for these small shelf pillows. They come in, I believe, 8 by 10 sheets. So for this project, you start out with, I think the pattern says an 8 by 8.5 or a 6 by 8.5 inch rectangle. And then we're going to cut it down to that 4 by 8.5 inch rectangle. So you can really get a couple or few of these shelf pillows out of just one sheet of Felty. All right. I'm just so excited to tell you about this stuff that I'm getting off track. But at any rate, what I like about the Felty is you don't have to finish those raw edges. There's going to be no fraying. And when you cut it, there's a nice clean edge. There's no fibers that come off of that cut edge. It's just a nice clean cut. So it's perfect for raw edge applique or reverse applique like we're doing here. So here are some of those other colors a little bit closer up, and it's just so great to work with. Here it is shown as like a machine embroidery sort of patch or machine embroidery applique. And you can see that lettering just pops off of the surface, and it's just a really, really great medium for, like I said, those machine embroidery patches, any machine embroidery designs. We also featured it in our In the Hoop greeting cards embroidery sewing session, which is available for viewing and participating and interacting with right now. So we activated this session last Tuesday, and it is just buzzing with people. I've talked to so many people who are taking the session and absolutely love it. We've gotten tons of testimonials of people who have always wanted to try making greeting cards, and now they have a confidence boost and they're able to watch and rewatch these videos and have them in their personal library at sewingonline.sulky.com. So this Easter design for this card is actually one of the designs that you get included with purchase of the session. You will get 6 embroidered card or a 6 design collection, as well as 5 bonus frame designs you can use to create your own cards. And when you're creating your own cards, using a piece of that Felty on your card to give it dimension, to make the design pop, it's a really, really great way of showcasing those designs and, you know, putting a little something extra special on the cards that you're sending. So Julie has included, Julie of Designs by Juju has included 3 designs that you can use for cardstock and 3 designs that you can use for Felty. So you can try your hand at these cards. You can grab up an assortment pack of Felty and create loads of cards. There's a Thinking of You card, an Easter card. There's a Mendy Floral card that you can, you know, add any phrase that you want in software. So there's a lot going on in that course, but this is really when we launched the Felty, and we're getting such great reviews of it. So I really think you'll love working with it, not only for small projects like this, crafty things, pillows, but also these great greeting cards. So Rebecca is saying the greeting card class is so much fun. All right. Love the greeting cards. So a lot of you have taken the session already. And don't forget, you can go in and watch and rewatch at any time. You can navigate to whichever lesson you want. If it's time for you to start making the Felty cards, you can go right to the Felty section and kind of review and go through that while you are stitching out your cards. All right. Marcia just ordered her Felty last night. All right. Teresa says, you talked me into it. I'm going to order Felty and watch the card tutorial. All right. I know you'll love it, Marcia. I mean, Teresa. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, here's the perfect applique. So you may be wondering, do I also need Fusible Web when I'm doing reverse applique? Well, technically you don't. However, I'm going to use it because not only am I going to cut out my shamrock shapes, or in this case, the mom letters from the Felty, but I'm going to use those cutouts and add some traditional applique inside of my cutout shamrocks. Because my shamrocks, the design that I found, I honestly just printed out some clip art of a shamrock, and I'm just going to use the center 4-leaf clover. It's rather large and open, so I wanted a little bit more of the Felty inside. So I'm going to use the perfect applique and fuse it to my felt, cut out my shamrock design, and then I'm going to reserve those shamrocks that I cut out, and I'm going to place them inside of my cutout shamrocks. So this will all make more sense while I'm walking through it, but that's why I'm going to use perfect applique for my version of this pillow. Now, for the mom pillow that I'm going to go through here, this was designed by Melanie Call of A Bit of Scrap Stuff blog. It's a great blog. If you've never looked at it before, she has wonderful quilt projects, all kinds of great photography, really cute projects. She used the Sulky KK2000 to secure her fabric to the Felty. So the Felty can be fused. You don't want to go too hot with it. You can also wash it. So it's washable up to 86 degrees. So if your iron is hotter than 86 degrees, you could risk marring the felt. But we don't need it too hot because that fusible web isn't very thick. We just need a little bit of heat to secure it to the Felty. Then I'm going to fuse my fabric on the fabric side to that Felty that has the fusible web on it. So again, I'm going to show you that momentarily, but I just wanted to give you the options. When you're doing reverse applique, the KK2000 is a great alternative to fusible web, and it's still going to ensure that your fabrics are not going to slip away from one another, and you'll be able to do your applique stitching without any shifting, whether you're doing it by hand or machine. So first things first, on your pattern, you will find the mom letters. Now, again, you can do any design you wish, but you will find those mom letters as part of your pattern download. And they're already reversed for you. So you're going to cut out the letters, place them on your felt, make sure your letters are equidistant or wherever you want them to be, and then cut them out. After you cut them out, you're going to place your fabric behind the felt, on the felt wrong side. So both right sides of the fabric are facing up, and smooth that out and make sure that all of your pieces are nice and aligned. This is where Melanie used the KK2000. Now, alternatively, you could, well, I'll show you that in a moment, but what I was going to say was take your perfect applique. This was a test I did in my my shamrock was too large for my piece, so I had to redo it. But you could draw your mom letters onto the paper side of your fusible web and don't cut it out. Fuse this to your felt wrong side, cut it out, and then remove the excess of your fusible web. Put your background fabric right side down so that you can see it through your cutout, and then give it a light fuse. The excess fusible web that you had on here before you cut out the letters is going to then adhere that fabric. So hopefully that makes sense. But again, I'm going to show you on the shamrock pillow that we're going to create together. At any rate, you need to stick these two fabrics together so that you can then add your stitching. So here's where the 30 weight thread is used. If you want to use the 50 weight, by all means you can. If you want to do hand stitching, you can use the 12 weight or the 30 weight, really. So stitch on the felt side about 1/8 of an inch away from your letters or your motifs. And what I think is super cute, I'm going to enlarge this so you can see it, is, oops, I'm going to try to enlarge it so you can see it. Melanie stitched a little heart on the inside of the O piece. So really cute, just a little touch. Like I said, you could put one of your buttons on the inside of the O, or the inside of your shamrocks, or the inside, or you know, anywhere you wish. But that's a really cute little touch. So after you have that portion of the pillow done with your reverse applique, just trim it up according to the pattern. And then we're going to assemble the patchwork section. So again, choose 8 fabrics that you have in your stash, or you could choose 2 fabrics and do kind of a checkerboard style, and just lay them out until you get a pleasing arrangement. Then you're going to sew your rows together and then sew them together along that long edge. And then you'll have your patchwork section. Make sure that you're pressing your seams either to one side to the darker fabric, or open if you prefer. Then you will have that nice, neat patchwork section. And what I really love about her choices here is that you wouldn't necessarily think that these fabrics really go together, but somehow it works in the finished pillow. So if you don't have a color you're looking for, or you really want this to coordinate, but you know, that last 8th fabric is kind of a ugly duckling, just sew it together and it might just work. So really cute, doesn't have to match, can just coordinate or not. You know, don't stress about it. Then you're going to sew that felt piece to the patchwork piece with right sides facing. So when you do trim up that felty piece, you want to make sure that you have about 1 inch below your design or your word or your letters, because you have to take that seam allowance into account. You're also going to have a seam allowance around the entire thing, but we want about 1 inch of clearance along that lower edge. Oh, all right. And like I mentioned, you know, when I first found my shamrock motif, it was way too large for what I needed. I just eyeballed it and drew some smaller ones so that I could do a clustering of shamrocks along that felt edge. So just like you want 1 inch of clearance along the lower edge, you want to make sure that you have seam allowance clearance along the upper edges, or upper edge and sides as well. You don't want your seam to go into your pretty applique edges or stitching. And then you get to add your ribbon. You can add your buttons right now if you wish. If you are like me and you forgot to grab some buttons, you can always add your buttons afterwards. Put them along your seam intersections on the patchwork area. You could add little sequins, little beads, whatever you want to do, because this is a little decorative shelf pillow, and this is our chance to really have fun with all these embellishments. So a couple of little buttons is really cute and subtle. It's totally up to you what you would like to do. It would be really cute also to sew out your applique stitching in a metallic thread or a hollow shimmer and give it some really fun sparkle. All right, so with that ribbon, you're just going to top stitch it over that seam. But if you're using piping or the pom-pom fringe I was talking about or any other trim, you would probably want to insert that into that seam before you sewed it. But if you're using a cute ribbon, especially one with a little crocheted trim that's so cute, you can just top stitch that over the seam you just sewed by sewing along both long edges to secure it to your pillow. All right, Marsha's asking, does the Felty make the seam too bulky? It actually doesn't. And after you have sewn that seam, press that seam down towards the patchwork section, and that's going to reduce some of the bulk. Alternatively, you can also trim that seam, but I actually find that your excess seam, if you press it down toward the patchwork and then you top stitch your ribbon around it, all of that bulk from the seam is kind of going to be behind where you top stitch the ribbon. And if anything, your ribbon might look a little bit textured or, have a little bit of poof to it. But honestly, the Felty is such a nice weight, and it's so, let me see if I can find a piece that I'm not using for this project, but you can see how malleable it is. It's a very lightweight, nice quality to it, has a great hand. But yes, it's going to be thicker than your typical quilting cotton fabric. And you have the quilting cotton behind it now for your Fusible Applique. So it's going to be a little bit on the bulky side. If you're concerned about it, after you sew that seam and you press it down toward the patchwork area, you can top stitch along it if you want to flatten it even more before you apply that ribbon. Then when you top stitch your ribbon, you'll have 2 more rows of stitching holding that seam down in place. So I think you'll find it's not going to bother you, especially after you add all of your fiber fill and plump it up. All right, so after you've embellished, you will simply add your backing rectangle, sew around all 4 sides. Then you're going to clip your corners, being careful not to clip through your stitching. And don't forget to leave an opening along that lower edge so you can turn this right side out. So after sewing that, you'll turn it right side out, stuff it with fiber fill. I like to use my trusty knitting needle, or you can use a chopstick to kind of get it in the corners and plump it up to your liking. And then you will simply slip stitch that opening shut and you're done. And I'm going to show you right now, we're about 30 minutes in. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to put this together, and we're going to sew it in real time. So here is that mom pillow, the mom version, sitting on a pretty shelf. And I'm going to go through my little St. Patrick's version. So let me switch gears here. Here I have all my materials kind of set out so that we can start on the reverse applique. All right, just have to move my microphone a little bit closer. So here I have my little shamrock design. And like I said, I drew this onto the paper side of the Sulky Perfect Applique. Then I arranged my little shamrocks where I would like them. You could see I have more clearance along the lower edge than I do on the upper edge. That is to take into account not only my seam allowance, but also the fact that I'm using a rather wide ribbon on my pillow. And I don't want it to cover up the lower edge of my applique. So I kind of shifted everything up a little bit. So this is the wrong side of my felt, and I just chose one of the sides to be the wrong side because they look exactly the same. All right, so now I'm just going to lightly fuse my Fusible Applique. Notice I haven't cut anything out yet. And again, you only need a very light fuse. You do not need a super hot iron. We don't want to mar the felt. We just want to secure that fusible web. That's all we need. And now this is connected to my felt. So I'm going to carefully cut out each one of my shamrocks. I'm not going to remove any of the paper backing yet. I'm using really sharp scissors here because, like I mentioned, I want to utilize these shamrock shapes and put them on the right side of my background fabric. This is going to be my background fabric here. So I'm going to be pretty careful and trying not to, gouge my pieces too much. And I'm just going to get it started. I actually think I might need my little snips just to get this going. And then I can switch to my heavier duty sharp scissors. And don't be too concerned with a really clean edge here, because after we cut out our shape, we can go in and kind of clean up those edges, make them a little bit straighter. It's a little tedious to get in here. So it might not look like the prettiest thing when we get our shape cut out. And we'll just kind of refine that once we get it done. So who out there has tried the Perfect Applique before? We have featured it in a couple of our webcast and videocast events. If you joined us for the Wilderness Wonder, where we did an entire applique, basically like animal mosaic design on a quilt. And that was one of the first times we introduced Perfect Applique to all of you. So if you joined us for that, you definitely got a taste of Perfect Applique. And, I know you all know that I was recently at QuiltCon, and I was at a demo table where we had some examples of projects made with Perfect Applique. People were amazed that fusible web was attached to these projects. They were, feeling them in their hands and couldn't believe the quality of the fusible web. So we did sell a lot of that product at the QuiltCon. It's very impressive. All right, so we've got one little shamrock done. And see, normally in reverse applique, we would just toss this. But I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to show you how I can further embellish my pillow using my cutout pieces. All right, Marcia says a cutting machine would be perfect to cut these out. Not only would it be perfect, but it would take a lot less time. So bear with me, everyone. We're still going to sew this in no time. I mean, if this is the most time-consuming and lengthiest part of the process, I'll take it. Because, St. Patrick's Day, again, is in a couple of days, and I am going to have this pillow displayed a couple of days early, even. This would make a really cute little gift if you have a teacher in your life who is very proud of their Irish heritage. They would really love this, to be gifted this on St. Patrick's Day. Or if you're going to a dinner party and going to eat some corned beef and cabbage, why not bring a little hostess gift and bring this cute little shelf pillow? You don't even have to use, shamrock print fabric. Just go into your stash and find some greens, some pinks, some golds, and how cute. Your stitching and the little motif that you find is decoration enough. And again, I found my little shamrock design just by searching clip art. So don't think that, oh, I don't know how to draw a shamrock, or I can't possibly find a pattern in time. You can search through clip art designs, or if you found the perfect fabric, such as this, you could enlarge one of these shamrock motifs and use that for your applique template. I also like to use cookie cutters sometimes as applique templates, especially if you can find those cookie cutters that are letters. Those are so great for applique. You could write on here, you know, have fun or love you or something like that, and use those really cute block letter cookie cutters for your applique templates, and you're off to the races. So don't think that you have to be this great artist to make these really fun creations. You can use what is already in front of you. Again, using a print from the fabric, or a motif rather, is a great idea and a really good way to pull in those fabric elements into your design. So I'm trying to be rather careful here so that I don't cut away these little flanges in between the clover shapes, but this felt cuts so nicely. It is almost like a high quality wool felt, except it's not made out of wool. So it's much more affordable, very easy to use. Again, if you like to do applique machine embroidery, but you don't want your fabric to fray, use this Felty. You will not be disappointed. All right, so now we've got our 3 motifs cut out. And now what I'm going to do is remove that extra paper backing. See how I've still got some fusible? The great thing about this is these little flanges that are in between the little the clover leaves, I'm going to be able to fuse those down completely. I don't have to rely on the KK2000, which, as you know, is air soluble. So over a period of time, it's going to dissipate in the air. So if you haven't stitched along down into those little flanges, which can be a little bit difficult in these smaller areas, those are going to lift up or they're going to tear off over time. So having that little bit of fusible there is a really great idea. So now we're going to place that felt over the top of our backing fabric, revealing the fabric underneath. So it looks really dark here, but there you can see it a little bit better. Very, very cute. You can also fussy cut your fabric underneath if you want. You can turn it upside down to see if you get a little bit more of the shamrock motifs. I think I like that a little bit better. I'm going to fuse this in the areas where I still have fusible, and then I'm going to add another couple of shots of KK2000 just along the edges where I didn't have fusible attached still. Now, of course, you could add a whole sheet of the Fusible Applique along the back and then just draw your motifs where you want them, and then you would have fusible web along your entire Felty sheet. The only reason I didn't do that is because I was actually conserving my Fusible Applique. And so I drew a bunch of motifs and then arranged them that way. But you can certainly just, you know, cut a piece that's the same length, draw out your design, and then again, you'll have fusible along your entire piece of felt. So just as we did before, we do not need a lot of heat here. I'm just going to get those little flanges, and then I'm going to go from the opposite side so that my iron heat can really get on the fusible. So we're going to carefully fuse from the fabric side. All right. Linda says, I use my teacher bulletin board letters for applique templates. That's a great idea as well. All right, that's probably enough. Now, when you're fusing, I just went against the rule, but when you're fusing, you want to really go up and down with the iron as opposed to back and forth so that there's no shifting. All right, so now those little flanges are nice and fused. I'm just going to make doubly sure that those are attached. We do not want those coming up over time. And now I'm going to use, like I said, just a little bit of the KK2000 along the other areas, just to make sure this doesn't shift out of place. You don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. And no, I wouldn't really recommend using this on my nice wool pressing mat, which if you don't have one of these, we have these at sulky.com. It's so nice to have a little pressing area that's right next to my sewing machine, especially when we're doing our little piecing, because we can sew, press, and we can complete that little patchwork area in no time. All right. And thank you all for putting your tips in the comments. I really love that. Someone has a tip about choosing the right font size and print it on the paper first. Yes, always audition it. All right, so now we have these little cuties, and we can choose to do regular applique onto either our patchwork piece, put them down here on the pillow, or we can fuse this onto the inside of that, main little shamrock. So cute. So I don't know. I'm not even sure I want to use those right there. So I might use these instead of using the little buttons. Or I can fuse these and then put a button inside and have some more texture going on my little pillow. So I may save these until the end. You all can tell me what you like. It is a little difficult to see, but I think I'm actually going to leave it rather plain. And then when I go in with my Blendables thread, I can add some thread work into my little shamrocks as well. All right, so speaking of that, we are going to go over to the machine and we're going to sew our applique piece to secure our applique. So I'm going to try to move my camera over to my machine without everything falling over. So bear with me just a moment so we can get in here. Just a sec. It's camera crew party of one here, so just a moment. All right, this may be as good as I can get towards the needle, but I will move my work over here after I'm done sewing. So right now I have a 90-14 needle and I have it threaded with one of our 30 weight Blendables, and it's beautiful greens, browns, and gold colors. So it's absolutely perfect for my raw edge applique. So I am just going to start on one of those flanges, and I'm just going to straight stitch along my little shamrock. Now, you want to make sure if you do have the needle down function, it's really important to utilize that and to always stop with your needle down in the fabric, especially with something like this that has so many curves and twists and turns to it. Always stop with your needle down, then pivot, then keep going around the shape. And I have lengthened my stitch length quite a bit here. It's at 3.5. You could go a little bit smaller if you prefer. You could do 2.5, but with this 30 weight thread, I find that the longer stitch length, I don't know, it has more of a sort of hand done look to it. I have to lift my presser foot up every so often to make sure I'm in the right spot. If you have an open toe presser foot, which I do and I just didn't install, that would be a great thing to utilize at this point. The felt is rather dark, and so it's just a little difficult for me to see underneath the presser foot, but we're coming along here. And again, I'm going to try, I have a stiletto here. I'm going to try to hold down that little flange piece and sew right down it. And you can see just how methodical and careful I'm trying to be to really go around my shape, trying to keep a consistent width for my stitches. But if you go a little farther away from certain areas than others, it's okay. Nobody is going to call the Shamrock police on you. And, you know, if we looked as closely at our items that we purchase as we do to the items that we make, we would be really unsatisfied with a lot of things out there. We're our own worst critics when it comes to perfect stitches, and you know, it's about having fun. It's not about being perfect. All right, I'm almost done with the one shamrock here, and then I'll show it to you all. All right, so at the end, I'm just gonna trim my threads, and I'm gonna show you all of the mistakes that I made and how I'm not gonna worry about it. All right. Sorry, it's very dark. Can you all see? So right here, I kind of missed this area with the stitching. I went across, I couldn't even really see that that was there. Here I have a little bit of stitching popping out. I'm just gonna go on the wrong side and I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit. There, it's looking pretty good. And I'm ready to continue on with the applique stitching. Now, I will try to do one more here, and please put your comments in the chat for any questions that you might have. And I will sew my last one after I do, whoopsies, after I do my patchwork piece. So, as you could see, my machine was going real fast, and I went way off track. So I've got to rip out those stitches and start that applique over again. See? No problemo. We're going to give it another shot and not go as fast. If you have a speed control on your machine like I do, I'm going to manually set it so that that doesn't happen again. Make sure that my needle down function is still on. And continue around my little shamrock. So if you're a beginner and this is intimidating to you, you can certainly use a design that is straighter. You know, these block letters used on the mom pillow are really great because you really just need to worry about straight stitching. But I, of course, had to use some curvy shamrocks to sew right here for you on camera. But that's okay. It's not that difficult either. Just gotta make sure. And here I'm getting a little close to the felt edge. I'm not that concerned about it. We're just gonna carry on. And make sure we go down that other flange. I know it's difficult to see this part because I cannot get the right camera angle, but again, I'll show you this when I'm done. And please continue to put your questions and comments in the chat. I'm sure you have all done applique a lot in your life. When I was growing up, those applique sweatshirts with the puffy paint and the fun stitching and embellishments were all the rage because I am a child of the 80s. And I think that puff paint was perhaps an answer to satin stitching. And people really liked doing that for a while, and then they went back to the sewing because, as you know, that puffy paint does not withstand a bunch of washings like your sewing can. All right, I'm back to the beginning here of my little shamrock. I'm going to go down that little flange piece, and I'm actually going to back stitch across it a little bit and then trim off my threads. And we'll see how I did on this one. I think it was a little bit more accurate. And there is my blendables stitching. That one looks a little bit better than this one. So, you know, we're coming along. We're learning from our mistakes. There you go. All right. I am going to finish doing the stitching on my large shamrock after I do the piecing here so that I can show you more of the project without taking up too much of your valuable time. So pretend that we have done the sewing along that middle shamrock as well. This is the backing fabric I'm going to use. So I'm just going to set these two pieces aside and let's go back to our other camera angle that we had here. Okay. And make sure we don't burn ourselves on the iron. So now I'm going to arrange the 8 fabrics that I have for that patchwork part of the design. And if you have a directional print, you can, by all means, take that into account. These are an all-over directional print. So I can decide, do I want it to say Ireland up and down? Do I want it to say dance? I think I want it to say Ireland. Really cute fabrics going on. Here's my other little leprechaun guy. I think that is a pretty cute arrangement. So you can play around with this until you get it to where you want it. And then we're going to sew together our rows and squares. So before we do this, we have to swap out our thread. And like I said, I'm using the 50 weight cotton for my piecing because it creates the most lightweight seam and it's great to sew. It's strong. It's fantastic. Along with swapping out my thread, and this is the blendables I was using before. You could see it's like the perfect colors for St. Patrick's Day. Along with swapping out my thread, I also have to swap out my needle size. So your needle size is dependent upon the weight of your thread that you're using. So now I'm going to go to a 7511 or a 7010 needle. And I'm just going to sew together my squares using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this goes together very quickly, as you can imagine. So now I have my first 2. And what do you think? Should we press open our seam or press our seams to one side? I think I'm going to press open my seams and then we'll try and get them as flat as can be. All right, so our first little section is done. And you can see just how quickly this little pillow is gonna come together. So you can create it for Mother's Day like we did. It would be a really great way to honor a mom who has passed from our lives. If you happen to have a bunch of her hankies, or if you happen to have a bunch of her shirts, you could patch them up and make a little memory pillow for all the grandkids. That would be a really great way to honor a person who has passed. And you could make a lot of these little patchwork pillows that they can then have to celebrate that person in their lives. So it would be really cute to do this for Father's Day as well. You could just write Dad along the top for your Fusible Applique, or excuse me, your reverse applique. And then you could use a bunch of Dad's old ties for the patchwork. Would be really, really great. Yes, Flo, I should chain the patches to go faster. It's hard managing all the cameras and looking at the live chat and sewing and pressing at the same time, as you can imagine. But since I don't have the greatest camera angle on my machine, that's why I'm doing them one at a time so I can bring them over and show you as I go. And I'm actually, now that I've pressed open all these seams, I'm going to go to one side with them. I think I'm going to get a flatter, nicer seam doing it that way. All right, so I have my top row completed, my 1/4 inch seams, and now we're just going to do the bottom row. You can add lots of embellishments inside of these seams or on top of them as well. So like I mentioned, we still have our little cutaways that we had. You could place these along some of those seam lines for some extra embellishment. So don't throw away those reverse applique sort of innards, right? But as sewers, I know we seldom throw anything away. And even if it's the selvages off of the fabric, you know, I saw someone making a selvage purse. This was actually at the QuiltCon. And she had saved all of those cut off selvages and pieced them together and used that as the fabric for the purse that she was carrying. So there we go. My seam was a little bit tight along the edge there. You can always, on little pieces like this, you can always start, instead of starting at the edge, you could start farther in on that patchwork piece and then backstitch a little bit. I lost my bobbin thread. Bear with me a moment. There it is. All right. I also have my 50 weight thread in the bobbin, and that's what I used when I did my applique stitching as well. So you don't have to use the same weight in the bobbin that you do on the top, especially if you're not going to see it. You know, there's no reason to use that 30 weight in the bobbin if we're not going to see it, right? So you can pair it with a lighter weight thread and have a really great balanced looking stitch. All right, so our other little patchwork section is done. I'm going to press my seams because I didn't do that yet. And then we are going to stitch these together, making sure that we're lining up all of our seams. So I always just pin right at my seam intersection, and probably we want to nest our seams here so that some of our seams are going this direction and our other seams are going the opposite direction. That way we can nest our seams, meaning these seams are going this way, these seams are going this way, and we're going to line up our intersections and place some pins. Again, line up those intersections and pin. Then we're going to simply sew this seam. Then we're going to add that patchwork piece to the upper edge. All right, you can add more or less pins if you like. And we're just going to sew that edge until we have our patchwork section completed. Make sure to remove those pins as you reach them. I'm using just 1/4 inch seams here. Now we're going to see how we did and if our seams lined up. It would be really great if we got that right on the first try. All right, looking pretty good. This one's slightly off. So you tell me, should we worry about that and rip it out and redo it? Or should we place one of our cute little shamrocks right there so that nobody notices that this doesn't line up perfectly like these? I like that idea. What do you think? Just going to make sure these are nice and flat before I do any fusing. So I'm going to take the fusible web off of the back of my reserved. I need a magnifying glass just to see it. There we go. You can see that really lightweight fusible web is still attached to the back of that applique piece. I'm going to strategically place it right along that seam. And we're just going to give it a little bit of heat and fuse it down. There we go. No one has to know that we had a little boo-boo there. And we've pulled in more of our cute design down below. So now it's just a matter of attaching these pieces, and we can trim everything up. You know, if it's a little bit off, again, we're just going to stuff this pillow with fiberfill so it doesn't have to be the perfect dimensions. So I'm just going to use a couple of wonder clips, since now we're working with a little bit of bulk, and we're going to sew that seam. Now again, I still have to do my raw edge applique stitching along that center shamrock, but I'm going to finish the top and add that ribbon so we can all see what that looks like, and then I will post my finished project in the comments of this post so you can all see what it ends up looking like. Okay, here we are. I've sewn that seam. I like to press it after I've sewn it, and then I'm going to press it down toward the patchwork. That way, that whole seam is going to be behind the ribbon that I add. And because we did all that nice pressing, everything looks great. All right, so like I said before, we could do some top stitching along the patchwork side just to flatten out that felt a little bit more, but honestly, it's really not necessary. It's a really nice weight of felt. So at this point, we would go in, and not only am I going to finish up my applique stitching using that 30 weight blendables, but I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to add some stitching on the inside of this little applique guy. I'm just going to put these little straight stitches inside of the shamrocks, and that's going to put a little bit more thread work on here. And then it's just a matter of adding our backing piece. You can see I need to trim everything up a little bit, sewing around, stuffing it with fiber fill after we turn it right side out, and it's done. And how cute are we? Love it. All right, so again, I'll finish that up and I'll post it so that you can all see it on the Sulky Facebook page, and we'll add it to the blog post where we featured our cute mom pillow design. And that way, you'll all get a look at my finished result. Oh, I said I was going to add my ribbon, didn't I? So for those of you who want to stick around, I'm really just going to top stitch it. And actually, I want to add my ribbon, I think, using that 30 weight blendables as well. So at this point, you know, after I add all my other stitching, I would just pin my ribbon in place, making sure that my seam allowance remains flat along that side, just centering the ribbon over that seam. Give it a couple of pins. And then you can just top stitch along both sides of the ribbon. And you can either use a thread that matches your ribbon, or I think it'll look really cool with the blendables that I'm using for the applique stitching. So we'll try that. And then I'm just going to trim my ribbon after I sew it, just to make sure that my length is correct. But there is more of the finished pillow top that you will see. Make sure it's a little bit straighter when I sew it on there so that it's good to go. All right, very cute. And again, you can use your buttons, more stitching, more little embellishments. If you want to put another one down here, kind of tie this one in a little bit more. Or again, we have that big one. We could do a little cluster. So lots of different options that, oh, we can do a layered applique. That would be cute right there. I don't know, it might be getting to be too much. Sometimes less is more. It's a good idea to audition your embellishments before you go ahead and sew them. All right, so I'm going to make sure that, oh, Esther says, looking forward to seeing your completed pillow. So am I. You can see how quickly it came together. About 30-40 minutes, and we have the top totally sewn and done. So very doable, very accessible. You could definitely have that done by St. Patrick's Day, and then, you know, create some mom pillows for Mother's Day, or again, to honor someone, a mom or a dad who has passed. Really great idea for that as well. Oh, Esther, I missed your I missed your comment. Turn the top of the shamrock a little more to the left to cover more of the upper seam. Oh, well, it's fused now. Hopefully I did it right. All right. Just carry on. See, it's all about recovering from our mistakes, right? We can either rip out the seams, which that wouldn't have taken any time at all to rip that out and make sure that our patchwork seams were aligned. But, you know, I was looking for a way to utilize that cute little shamrock applique. So, boom, we did it. All right, another thing I wanted to let you all know is, you may have heard me talk about this last week, but our Casey photo contest is up and running. And you can find this at sulky.com. We will put the link in the comments here so that you can head on over and vote for your favorite. We have quite a few Casey duffel bags that have entered the contest. So go and check them out and vote on your favorite. You can also still enter until June 30th. So you have a little while to finish up your Casey duffel bag. If you didn't join us for the Casey Duffel videocast, you can still register for that and participate and make your bag. We still have kits available. We restocked them so that you could all have your chance at winning the contest. And you can create your take on the Casey duffel. And all you have to do is upload a photo of your completed bag, fill out the entry form, and you could win over $1,900 of supplies to outfit your sewing room. One of them being this fantastic Brother sewing machine. Let me enlarge that for you so you can see. Isn't this an awesome machine? It comes with this great sewing table that really extends the surface that you have to sew on. And you could win this, win some dream collections of Sulky thread and stabilizers, win a cutting bundle from Havel's Sewing, and win a subscription to the American Sewing Guild education platform valued at, I believe, $179, something like that. So you will win tons of stuff to outfit your sewing room just by completing that Casey duffel bag and uploading a photo of it to our photo contest. So head on over and check out the bags we have there so far and vote on your favorite. I'm sure everyone would appreciate it who has entered so far. All right. I think that's all for today. I hope you are all inspired to grab up some Sulky Felty. Don't forget to try the Sulky Perfect Applique because you're going to love it. Some 30-weight blendables thread, some 50-weight cotton and steel thread, and be on your way to creating your mom's shelf pillow or your own take on the pillow like I did today with the St. Patrick's Day theme. So have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. I hope you celebrate, eat some good food, and wear your green with pride. Again, you can grab up our Feeling Lucky machine embroidery collection. This is the Mischief Maker. Or you can grab up the entire collection along with a thread assortment. And you can have these designs in your Sulky account and start stitching these out so you have your green on and you look cute for this coming Thursday. All right. I just want to make sure that I have addressed everyone's question. If I didn't get to your question, be sure to email us at info@sulky.com at any time. I will also go through the chat to make sure that the questions have been answered. So I appreciate you spending your afternoon with me. Be sure to tune in next week for another So What? And we are going strong with National Quilting Month, so I think you will really like next week's fun, quick, and easy project as well. All right, have a great rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you next week.